Hello. Welcome to Matters of Decorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Let's take a trip. Sometimes it is advantageous to just let my mind wander, to start a direction in a game concept and see where it takes me. So I don't know where this is going. I don't know what I'm going to end up with by the time I'm done with this episode. But this is how these things happen. There is an adventure I'm going to be running for the layer action in a little while. We've got some other stuff to clear off the board first, but I may have hinted at elements of it when I talked about my Old West steampunk game. I like the Eberron setting. I'd like to do some unusual things with it, so I came up with one of the conceits that I do when I'm running things to layer action is I will start with a tried and true tropey movie plot and start that as the baseline of the adventure and see where it grows from there. Days of Our Monks was basically Enter the Dragon or Mortal Kombat, depending on your generation. And the players turned it into a soap opera, which was beautiful. So I'm interested to see where this goes. The campaign I am talking about is one I call Guns of Eberron. Which is going to be running the Eberron system. I would like everyone to, or Eberron setting, and I've asked everyone to make up artificers. And although I might relax that a little bit, but I think an all artificer campaign is going to be interesting. And the conceit behind it, it's the Magnificent Seven, the Seven Samurai. The characters are hired guns. Some warlord has shown up and threatened a small town out in the middle of nowhere that no one's got any reason to care about. And player characters are hired guns, being asked to protect a town, being paid everything the town can put together because guns are expensive, in the hopes that these people won't have to move, change their way of life, just because some warlord says they need to move or die. And I've got the campaign, I got the bad guy. The bad guy fleshed out a lot over the past few days. Character concept I wasn't able to use for another game, but I'm importing and fleshing out a little bit. A great way to flesh things out is to go through a character conception process for different games. Character was rejected for the game I wanted to run him in, so he's going to show up as a bad guy in this one. I'm thinking about that small town. Eberron has a history of war. There was the Calamity, for which the Warforged were created, and subsequently exist as a shadow of. There are areas that are going to be more frontier-like, a little empty, where people can scrape out a living. But all land is valuable land. Any land may have a strategic position for someone, especially if you've got a railroad coming through. There are any number of reasons why this particular community could be endangered, but I don't want to think about the danger today. I want to think about that community. That's what I want to flesh out a little bit. I want to give it some life and some existence. I want to come up with the ecology that makes this place exist. You can't just drop a town in the middle of absolutely nothing. Well, you can, but they don't last. The American expansion west from the Mississippi has told us that there are any number of failed towns, places where the wagon trains just stopped. We can't go any further. There might be enough stuff here to survive on. Let's see how it goes. And it went badly. The wilderness has dangers, not the least of which is exposure, the environment, cold, heat, dehydration, starvation. If you're lucky enough to have animals around that you might be able to hunt for a while, uh, there's a daily requirement, and a human settlement or a settlement of sentience in a D&D setting could outstrip a poorly appointed natural area very quickly. So why here? Why is there a functioning town in this spot in the middle of nowhere? Why the town is endangered is down the road. And there are a million ways to endanger a town in the middle of nowhere. Um, and this town has weathered some of the more normal of those. So how? Who's going to be out in the middle of nowhere looking for some place to put a town? Well, refugees, for one thing. So you could have folks from other towns that have been affected by warfare, crime, people looking for a better life, setting out, feeling a couple of rangers, maybe a couple who are rangers who decided to set out, look for a new place. Uh, Ranger seems right. Kind of folks who can scout an area, look for the things that people need to live, make sure there aren't too many dangerous animals in the area, find a good place to start a settlement. So a a couple who are rangers gather around some of their most valued friends and family, and let them know, hey, we are going to forward west and see if we can find a place. Why don't you gather together everything you can, put together some carts and wagons, and we will send back message when we have a place. Come join us. Or everyone just starts, or if things are bad enough, they put together all the group gets together, put together all the resources they can. They make a wagon train. Wagon train's perfectly acceptable. It's like a one-ended caravan with no set destination. We got riding animals and carts and what dairy animals they could have. They're not going to be moving fast, but you got the rangers at the front. Much better. And so your rangers are going to be fording out ahead, finding places that carts can travel, and hoping beyond hope, once they get a certain distance past a known civilization, that they're going to find a spot. Just a place that they can sit down, call their own. They travel for a while. It should be remote. So it's not days or weeks, but the trip goes into months, as these things often do. They're not moving at the top speed that you can move. Uh, they've got dairy animals with them. There are carts of varying quality. They're moving whole families and often have to stop for repairs or to take care of an injury. They're probably a couple of clerics, a druid, some folks who can see to the health of the group. For the most part, maybe a few old retired fighters just looking to get away from things. But these are mostly commoners, folks who are skilled craftsmen and artisans, folks who can work the earth, a blacksmith or two. Family groups, or young people who may be able to start families further on down the line, leaving town and heading out with maybe an eye towards being able to sustain themselves in the future. A couple of months of travel. That is harrowing. That is difficult. There are going to be times they're going to come close to starvation, and fortunately, they got rangers and a druid, and they can make food happen when they need to. Those resources aren't going to last forever. They're going to go through areas where they can't make food happen, where they're going to have to go to their reserve stock, stuff that they've managed to preserve and dry, or go straight to the hardtack. If you've watched any of the Townsend's channel, It's an amazing YouTube channel that discusses historical cooking and historical times and food throughout the time, particularly around the Revolutionary War and after. Uh, Hardtack is not pleasant stuff. It's dough and salt. It's flour and salt and water that has been mashed into a dough, flattened out, uh, docked so that there's holes throughout it, slow baked and dried until it is roughly the consistency of bathroom tile. Uh, and on its own, it is nigh inedible. It has to be softened, moistened. You can break it. You can break it up and throw it in a stew as a thickener, or dip it in water, coffee, what have you, to soften it up enough that you can actually swallow it. It's calories and carbohydrates and nothing else. Um, it's basically a way to consume flour. Uh, it lasts forever, but you can't live on it. So you've got a barrel of the stuff because it's cheap to make, um, and cheap to buy, and you don't want to go to the barrel. You take a scoop out every so often so that you can fortify a stew or have it with a soup. You're making a lot of soup. You can get water. Hopefully it's raining. You're in an area where there's a decent amount of rainfall and you can catch some of that. Got barrels off the side of some of the carts specifically for catching that. Maybe you've angled the cover on the carts to be more effective rain catches when that happens. So you can get water, and what little roots and a couple of game animals you find can become a soup, and that's a good use for hardtack. Uh, when you're down to the nights where you're just eating hardtack, maybe hardtack and water, uh, you're thinking about heading back to town because this isn't working. The clerics have a good feeling. Druid's pretty sure that there's a place for you up ahead. You have hope and you have faith. After a couple of months, supplies are low. The barrel of hardtack, yeah, you can see the bottom. There's a few pieces left in there, but not enough for everyone. The next time you hit spare times, or the last time you're going to hit spare times, you're so far away you will never get everyone back to town. If you decide to turn back, you have gone far enough to make this a one-way trip, one way or the other. It's all or nothing. And the Rangers come back and they found a place. What would they have found? A forested area or a spot next to a forested area. Nice flat ground, good for building, some solid earth next to forest. So you've got trees that you can carefully harvest for building materials. Maybe there's an area of shale nearby, some stones that can be carefully mined out a little bit for some additional building materials, decent earth, and most importantly, a spring. There is natural water not far from the surface or bubbling out of the surface. You've got animals and plants around, an abundance of animals, not just the rabbits and squirrels that you've seen on the plains sporadically, but there's deer, a couple of predators in those woods. Maybe not a bear, but some wolves that you can hear at night. It's not 100% safe, but you never expected it to be 100% safe. And the howling of wolves means that there is enough game in the area to support wolves, which means there's enough game in the area to support you if you're careful. First days are rough, but you are in an area of plenty. Relative plenty. The rangers can scour enough nuts and berries out of the wood, can nail enough squirrel and rabbit and slightly larger game now and then. Might bring down a deer or two, and you have food. You not only have enough food that everyone can get a belly full for dinner, but you can preserve some of this. You can set up stands and racks and start smoking some of the meat and start tanning some of the hides. Uh, you can start making things here. And that's where it all starts. You have what you need to make things. Some of those folks know how to till the land. They set out some areas, um, start tilling, get some crops down, put up fences. Everyone who can hunt, not everyone who can hunt. They don't want to hunt the area out. They absolutely do not want to hunt the area out. You're probably going to end up dealing with some of the wolves. Fortunately, you got some old fighters and the rangers who can make it expensive for the wolves to get too close to you, uh, while everyone else is building fences. And you've got the wagons in a circle as a town center, probably around the spring, so that you can preserve that area for yourselves. Other animals are going to come and try and use the spring. The druid's going to make sure that the right animals can get to the spring. You want to cultivate some of those relationships with nature. You're not 100% out of sync. You're not going to clear cut this forest. You're not going to mine those stones down to the bedrock. You are going to use what you find sparingly. Fortunately, again, druid. You cut down not too many trees, those trees come back really fast. Um, you can make some of your homes. The druid's going to make his house out of a living wood. Plant some saplings and through plant growth and artistry, weave them into a nice little hut, something that suits him nicely. Uh, nice place to raise a small family. Um, some folks might want to go that route. Some folks might have slightly bigger ideas or might want a more traditional home. Drew's not going to be too upset with people, especially taking deadfall out of the forest. Untouched forest land. There's going to be a lot of deadfall. Some of it's going to be perfectly good. There's going to be all kinds of resources you can take out of the forest without taking out of the forest. You have rangers and druids. You got people who know how to work with nature. You're going to cultivate some of that stuff in the forest. You're going to make paths where you can just pick fruit and nuts off of bushes that you have cultivated, but you haven't taken them out. Or adding to the ecosystem. You've got an area that is nice to use. Other folks are taking crops that won't deal with that situation very well. Your potatoes and tubers and other things. Maybe some wheat. Probably brought some seeds with you that you haven't pounded down for oil and food yet. Start some fields. Not big at first, but given a few months, they'll feed you. You just got to make it those few months. Forest is providing. A deciduous forest, I think. Not an evergreen forest. Uh, and a deciduous forest, it's not super easy to get food off the trees, but you can. Um, More nut variety than a deciduous forest would have. And um, fruits and nuts will go a long way. Plenty of berries. Berries grow fast. You've got the start. You've got some animals that you brought. You don't eat the animals. You milk the animals that can be milked, and you breed the animals, and you try and get a decent herd, so that you can eventually eat some of those animals. You're not reliant on um, the uh, the hunting and foraging for what you need. You have people who are out there hunting and gathering, and you have people here who are engaging in agriculture, and everyone works together. Blacksmiths and carpenters make a couple of houses happen. Yeah, you make a town hall, someplace where you can bring your resources back to and part them out, where you can have the big tools that everyone is going to need. the forge is in the town hall, at least at first. Um, that might eventually turn into another structure, another building, but right now it's the forge, and it stays hot pretty much all the time. And the blacksmiths are working around the clock to pull nails and make tools for everyone to keep the equipment that they're using to hunt and to build with sharp and fresh and well repaired. The storehouse, as time goes on and they do start getting crops, as they start to gather more food than they need today, but that they might need tomorrow. You need some place to put that. You need some place to put the rooms you have for drying things out now, for preserving meat and vegetables and berries. It has some folks starting to make preserves. You're going to need jars. You're going to need glass. You're going to need people who can manipulate the glass. You're going to need a furnace specifically for melting down some of that sand from the quarry into what you can blow into glasses, jars, bottles, lay out as your windows. You're building a town now. It's not just a little settlement. It's not just your carts. Your wagon train gets broken down. That's wood. That's a lot of wood. Some of those wheels turn into bits of furniture or decoration because they're never rolling again. They're those carts. They're walls and floors now. That's the roof over your head. You're invested. You almost died getting here. You almost starved a few times. People got diseases and infections and injuries that if you hadn't had your wits around you, maybe not everybody made it. Maybe there's a couple of markers on your path where some of the older folks who thought that they could give a try, or some of the very young who weren't quite hardy enough for this trip, uh, ended their journeys early. Uh, Simple marker, a lot of prayers, some assurances from the gods above that they're watched over, but they're no longer with you. That's a town, a settlement. They're going to start building what they need, stoves, so that they can make better food. They can make the food that they can get last longer and stretch further. And that one bard who wasn't sure about this whole thing, but who's going to pass up a chance to be on the ground floor of this story? Towns need bards. They need criers. They need someone to keep records of what happens. And they start sitting down and taking the quill out of their hat and writing down story of how this town came to be, of what they went through, of what they lost, and what they've gained. And you create a town named Ranger's Rest. There we go. That's a good name. I like that. Ranger's Rest. And when the Rangers first found it, they thought, well, we'll just take a break here next to this spring and see what happens. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah. Ranger's Rest, little town. Maybe you want to have this be something that's still that first generation. You still have the people there who first went there, because those are the most invested people ever. But maybe they've built their homes, got a couple of barns, raising families now, got kids. Those animals they brought with them, now they're maybe a small herd or two, not not a lot, enough enough that you can feed the town with a couple of bulls and a couple of hogs once a season. Yeah, yeah. You part them out. You have a nice big meal with the whole town to celebrate the. You had enough to spare these animals and to revere their spirits and use every single part of them. You have a nice meal, everyone, with with the stuff that's not going to be able that preservable, and then you part them out and you smoke them and you eat onto that for the rest of the season. 100 people? 100 people seems like a lot. Um, it's not for a town that size, or for a town of this nature. 100 people isn't a lot. Someplace out in the middle of nowhere. Let's cut that down to say 50. 50 is a desperate number to have a population, especially if a quarter of those are children. Because everyone has to wear multiple hats. Everyone has to pull their weight. Everyone, even the kids, the moment that they can walk and lift and pull things, or walking and lifting and pull things, everyone's got to pull their weight. You love those children, you bring them up right, but everyone works. It's a farm community, and a hunting community, and neither of those communities can afford to have anyone around who's not capable of doing something. Every day is a struggle, but you have everything around you that you need for that struggle to succeed. Not the least of which is the people that you brought with you, the people around you. Those Rangers could not be making it on their own. Well, they could be. The Rangers could probably survive out here just fine if it was just them. But they want to raise a family too. And on their own, that'd be tricky. But in a community where any children that they have are going to have an opportunity to learn more and diversify their skills and be protected by a group. Yeah. 50 people, this is rough, but it's doable. You can survive this. You got wolves, you can deal with the wolves. You've got enough strong hands and enough weaponry. And yeah, you got to keep an eye on those kids. You got to keep an eye on your animals. You got to be on this whole time. Maybe you brought some dogs with you. Maybe you brought some pets, some animals that are capable of helping you defend things. Maybe there's an animal companion or two out there helping you out. Maybe there's one of them talking to the wolves, forming a little bit of alliance. Maybe an uneasy alliance, but you got your wolf companion telling the other wolves, hey, these guys are okay. You just stay on that side of the line. We'll stay on this side of the line. We'll work it out. That is a community on a knife's edge. Ranger's Rest succeeds or fails on the effort of the entire community every day. And then something happens. Someone wants that land. Someone shows up and says, you got a nice town here. And I really appreciate what folks like you got to go through to get here. It's tribute, but you got to leave. See, I need this land now. And I have the strength of arms to take it from you. Tell you what, I'm going to go get my guys so we can come in and move in. You can leave the buildings because they're really nice. We like these buildings. This would be a nice place for us to move in. I'm going to be back in a moon. You got a moon. 28 days, 4 weeks, because I am a generous type. We'll stop off someplace else, have a rest. When we get back, if you're not gone, we will make you gone. I hope I make myself perfectly clear. And those rangers and that druid and the clerics and the old fighters get together, and they put together everything they got, all their adventuring gear, everything that they have collected. And they look at each other and they say, we cannot do this. We do not have the gear. We do not have the manpower. We do not have the armor. We do not have the levels. What that person is threatening to bring back here will wipe us out. Maybe if we had help. Maybe there's enough here for us to hire some help. You imagine the desperation after everything you've gone through, after everything you have done, after all the effort that you have put in. Everyone has hammered a nail. Everyone has pulled weeds. Everyone has gone out looking, seeing if they can spot one more thing that they can survive off of. Everyone has hauled water. Everyone has lost something. Everyone has planted their roots in this community. Everyone has made Rangers Rest. And now someone who's got more guys and more guns has decided they're going to just come and take it from you. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what you would go to make that not happen? Yeah. I think this was going to form the actual basis for Rangers Rest. I'm going to map this town out. The town, the forest, spring. It's now in a building of its own, natural stone, like a well that never runs dry. Yeah. It needs a map. Needs some names scattered about. Some folks, a few numbers assigned to it. Yeah. I think that's what I'm going to do. Well, thank you very much for following me along on this particular journey to a new place. Welcome to Ranger's Rest. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, if there's ideas you'd have to throw into a place like Ranger's Rest, or part of the process that you enjoyed or would like to expound on, things you'd like to hear me talk about, other things you'd like to see me cover, go ahead and leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You will love leaving me a comment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. I invite you to hit the subscribe button. If you do, hit the notification bell too, so that you're alerted when my videos become available. If you'd like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I will see you next time in the next Matters of DeCorum.